Hi everyone, welcome to Maximum Attack Rallying and to your Monday dose of rallying chit chat. Oh my goodness, what a weekend we had in Estonia. It's hard to know what to say about it, isn't it? I'm going to just pull out three major stories, I think, rather than going through every single line of the results. I'm going to pull out three major stories that I think have come out of the weekend and just talk about them. And the first one is obvious, isn't it? It has to be the first one, and that is Oliver Solberg. He was sensational. What an incredible weekend for him. Oh, wow. I did not even put him remotely in the frame to win that rally. Not even close to it. I just had no... I don't... What can you say? For him to come along, first rally in the Rally 1 Yaris, and he not only won the event, he was absolutely dominant. It was an incredible performance. He won 9 stages. He was the fastest driver on the opening stage of every day. He was fastest on 2 of Sunday stages when he could have backed off and cruised. He won by more than 25 seconds over Oyt Tanak and Thierry Neuville, who was third. He was just dominant, wasn't he? He led from the first stage on Friday, never looked in any danger of losing that lead. It was just... There are just no words, are there? He was just imperious. It was like he'd always been there somehow. You know, what a contrast to his time at Hyundai a few years ago in that tricky Rally 1 car of theirs. I think a lot of people had doubts, didn't they, at that moment, and I think it's safe to say he was promoted too soon at that time, and obviously with that tricky car, things were made much more difficult for him. And it was just incredible, wasn't it? What an incredible performance, and he has more than answered any questions there may have been about his ability, and he has well and truly announced himself at the top of the sport. And it was just lovely to see, wasn't it? There was so much passion and emotion. You know, there were tears on Friday when he set that opening fastest time, his first ever fastest stage, and there were tears from the entire family on Sunday when he got to the end of the power stage and took that win. It's just such a lovely story, isn't it? A lovely story for Oliver, for the family, obviously after his father Petter won the championship back in 2003, and it's just, you know, for the sport generally, what a fantastic story. You know, I'm not going to say rookie, he's been around a long time, you know, he's an experienced driver, but first Rally 1 outing in the Toyota after that difficult Rally 1 debut a couple of years ago, not quite being able to seal the WRC2 championship, to get in that car, win the rally in such dominant fashion, you know, is really something, isn't it? And it has not only sent a clear message about his abilities, but it's also raised a few questions, hasn't it, I think, for some of the other drivers. I think Tanak and Neuville made a decent account of themselves, but for some of the others, I think a few eyebrows will be raised, particularly some of those lower down the order who probably should be doing a bit better, shouldn't they? So what an incredible performance. Just, it's hard to have words, isn't it? Really is hard to have words. So I don't really have any more words about it. Unbelievable. Let me know what you think in the comments if you've got anything to say, because yeah, I am blown away by it. Absolutely blown away. However, there were some other big things, and Solberg's performance has really overshadowed what would have been a huge story otherwise, and that is that we have a change of lead in the championship. Yes, after leading for basically the entire year, Elfyn Evans has finally relinquished top spot to Oyt Tanak. The Estonian, the local driver, might not have had the pace to win his home rally over the weekend, but he was a very strong second and has continued, hasn't it? He's continued a strong run of form that has now seen him take the lead of the series. So he finished second overall. I think he was second on the power stage and second on Sunday points, I think. So he now leads the championship by just 1 point, one tiny little point. What does that mean? What does it mean for Evans? What does it mean for Tanak? Obviously for Tanak, it means he will be opening the road in Finland, so that's going to make things a little bit trickier for him. it was a good performance. You know, you can't say too much from Tanak. He didn't seem too happy, didn't seem too comfortable. He had some slightly prickly words that were not well received, shall we say, by Cyril Abiteboul, the boss of Hyundai Motorsport. I think he said that they were SHIT at one point. So he wasn't super comfortable, but he did do a good job. Obviously, second is another strong result, and taking the lead of the championship is very important, isn't it? I think the question has to be, though, for Elfyn Evans, you know, where does that leave him? It leaves him second in the championship, obviously, which is a mixed bag. I think I might go as far as to say that this was Evans' worst performance of the season. He just didn't have the pace. You know, I've been saying this. I think him losing points in Sardinia and Portugal and the Acropolis was inevitable. You know, the championship lead was going to be whittled down. But I think, you know, we had to expect better from him on these faster events. You know, we've got Estonia, just had Estonia, sorry, we've got Finland next. And yes, there's still a road sweeping element when you're at the front, but he should have been doing better. And again, he didn't seem to have the answers, didn't have the pace, just didn't seem comfortable in the car. And I know when he's not comfortable, he takes a conservative approach compared to some drivers. But we've now seen that conservative approach hasn't worked because he has lost the lead of the championship. And in a way, it's not the end of the world. He's only a point behind, and Tanak will now be starting ahead of him and will have to sweep the road in Finland. And Evans is a previous Finland winner. This isn't like a disaster, but for me, it is... I said, didn't I, if he wasn't leading the championship after Rally Finland, then I was very concerned that he would go on and win the championship, and that concern unfortunately remains. I think he needs to go to Finland and he needs to turn up the wick. You know, he is in a fight. This is not going to be easy. Tanak is in extremely good form. Tanak is the main threat for the championship, and he's got to put the hammer down. He has got to make a statement. You know, I think right now, unfortunately, he looks like I'm not going to say weak. You know, he's not a weak driver by any means. He had an incredibly good start to the season, but I think he's got to put himself out there and say, look, I'm in this and I'm fighting for this, and I am going to take the lead back and I'm going to win this championship. You know, he has finished second in 4 out of the last 5 seasons, isn't it? You know, he's been second in the championship every year he's driven for Toyota, apart from one, I think. So he is very, very capable, but he just it's just not quite worked, has it, for the last few rallies. He probably lost a few more points than he should have done on the rough events, and yeah, I think this unfortunately was probably Evans' weakest performance, whereas Tanak is doing a really good job. He's banging in the points, getting decent results, and he's now seeing the benefits of that. And I think he is the sort of driver that can go to Finland, sweep the roads, but also keep himself in contention, not necessarily for the win, but he will be on the podium. And I think the problem for Evans is that he was was he 6th, I think, and that was only because Katsuta retired with a mechanical problem on Sunday. So not a good weekend for Evans at all, and I think it is now the time where he needs to have a bit of a regroup and say, we've got to put the hammer down here. We have got to start getting results. You have to be on the podium. I think that is the thing. Even if you're opening the road, you have to keep yourself in contention for the podium, and he did not do that in Estonia. So difficult weekend for him, good weekend for Tanak, and that brings me to the final major point, and that is Kalle Rovanpera. What is going on? It's hard not to feel that the Finn is not a little bit lost. So he finished 4th in Estonia. Not a terrible result by any means. He was fastest on the power stage, which is good, wasn't he? But there's just something not quite right, isn't it? You know, this is a rally that he has won 3 times in the past, and the pace wasn't quite there. He just doesn't seem very comfortable still. He doesn't have any answers, it seems, as to where the pace is and where he's at and what's going wrong. It's just, it's just not quite gelling somehow, is it? You know, he seemed pretty despondent at times, and it's hard to wonder what's going on. I think, you know, he was asked about his approach for Finland and how he thinks he's going to get on there, obviously his home rally, and he didn't seem to talk up his chances. He's still very much concerned about his pace on the loose, and that is a massive question, isn't it? You know, there is a few issues here. You know, we could say, is it the Hankook tyre, which he doesn't seem to have fully gelled with on gravel? Is it the change of balance in the car since the hybrid system was removed? Well, maybe. You know, I saw an interview with Elfyn Evans a few days ago where he was talking about how the removal of the hybrid has changed the cars quite significantly. Obviously, we've seen the weight shift around a little bit, I suspect, and the balance shift around. Is that the answer? I don't know. Are the tyres the answer? Or is it something a bit deeper than that? You know, is this a hangover from his part-time season last year? Is he struggling to get back into the groove still? I'm not so sure. I think it's tricky, isn't it? You know, if you look at his performances, he was absolutely dominant on tarmac on the Canary Islands. So the speed is there. You know, he hasn't forgotten how to drive by any means, but it's very strange that this problem seems to happen specifically on gravel. He doesn't seem to have the pace there, which should be his favoured surface. You know, it's the surface that he was brought up on. So it just seems a bit weird, doesn't it? It's a bit weird that the rallies where he should be really good, he doesn't seem to be very good, and the rallies where you wouldn't necessarily expect him to be that good, he was sensational. So I think there are some real issues there. Finland is going to be a litmus test, isn't it? He'll start in a reasonable road position, obviously not leading the way, and if he goes badly in Finland, if he goes badly at home, then I think we have to start asking some pretty big questions, but I'm not sure what those questions are. You know, I don't see it. I don't see where things are quite going wrong, and it's hard not to think that it's some kind of hangover, as I said, from last season. So I don't know. It's tricky times, isn't it? We are not seeing the Rovanpera that we are used to, unfortunately. We'll have to wait and see. We have to wait and see what happens in Finland. Hopefully he can just start to build some momentum. I think if he can build a little bit of momentum, maybe things will be okay. My concern is that he'll just get frustrated eventually and maybe decide that it's not for him, or I don't know. I'm not sure where this is going to go. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on that. Maybe do leave a little comment about that one. Do you think it's the tyres? Do you think it's the car? Do you think it's mental issues sounds really cruel, doesn't it? Do you think it's, you know, his mentality? Do you think things aren't quite right in that respect? So let me know what you think. Just a couple of other little tidbits worth mentioning then. Martin Sesks was the top Puma in what was not a great weekend for M Sport. Josh McAleen beat Munster again. Munster had some issues. He had a puncture on Friday, didn't he? So he ended up sweeping the road for much of the weekend, but not a great one, was it? You know, I think for a few drivers, the Solberg effect of this rally is quite telling. Obviously, Solberg has a lot of experience in the Rally 2 car, and he's done lots of rallies, but for him to jump in that Rally 1 car and win is still incredible. And I think the likes of Munster, I think particularly Takamoto Katsuta, who had to retire with a mechanical issue, those guys should probably be worried. I don't think Solberg is going to take Munster's seat, don't get me wrong, but I think for Katsuta perhaps there could. You know, he's not having a great year. He's still struggling to tie everything together and get a really strong result. I would argue that there is a case for putting Solberg in Katsuta's car, even if it's on a part-time basis and they share it. So worrying times for him. Robert Verves, he won WRC2, and good result for him, wasn't it? So that was impressive, particularly as he was ill on Friday. I had food poisoning, I had to go to hospital and have fluids, so very impressive indeed from him. But yeah, those, I'm not going to get too much into the other stuff. Obviously, you can read the full results online. You don't need me to tell you what they are. I just want to pick out those three big stories, which were incredible. And I think incredible is a fine word to end this video, because it was an incredible weekend. Well done, Oliver Solberg. Let me know what you think in the comments below. What do you think his next move should be? He's obviously back in WRC2 in Finland. Otherwise, hit that like and subscribe button. Follow me on socials and all of those other annoying things that I ask you to do. And I will see you again next time.